There are two bunnies on the sidewalk right outside my window here that I'm looking at, and it's almost as though they're looking at me. Anyway, hello and welcome back to Bookish, and welcome to my Saturday Hodgepodge, my weekly wrap-up of books, reading, booktube stuff, anything else I want to talk about. I want to start off today, since it is the one-year anniversary, by talking about John Lewis just for a minute. John Lewis, an American congressman, civil rights leader, one of my personal heroes, died a year ago today. One of the great kind of sadnesses for me from last year, and a year of, real sadness. If you don't know anything about John Lewis, he was the youngest civil rights leader probably during the 1960s. He was there in almost every significant civil rights action that took place in the 1960s, elected to Congress, fighting for voting rights and equality, and we here in the United States are still attempting to get Congress to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act to restore the provisions of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which expired, and which have kind of led to some of the efforts in southern states to restrict access to polls and things like that. So hopefully this year, it would have been really nice if they could have done it this week. Hopefully this year Congress will pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act to restore the provisions of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. But I just wanted to mention that because he was one of my personal heroes. This week's reading has gone really well. I'm having a really good reading month so far. So this week, I finished The Heartbeat of Wounded Knee by David Treuer, which I had started back in April or May, when I decided to make that month my First Nations reading month. And this is kind of a history of Native Americans in the United States, the First Nations people here in the United States, since Wounded Knee. The massacre of Wounded Knee was kind of seen as the end, really, of Native American or First Nations resistance here in the United States. And for a long time, it was seen as this kind of, or the author's contention is that it's been seen as this kind of negative thing, that from that point on, First Nations people really kind of faded and things have gotten worse. And Treuer here is not arguing that things have not been really bad, but what he's arguing is that far from that being the end of Native Americans in the United States, that Native Americans have continued to find ways to adapt and thrive and to fight and to regain some levels of self-determination. It was a really good book. At times I thought he was a little bit perhaps overly optimistic, but I'm not a cynic, so I kind of embrace those ideas. At times I thought he was a little bit too willing to suggest or to see the bright side of a lot of very negative things, but I'm not a First Nations person or Indigenous person. I think this is a really valuable book. I also finished listening to the audiobook of Emma for Jane Austen July. I had chosen Emma as my Jane Austen this year, and that would have put me, 5 of the 6. I'm sorry, the bunnies are just being really cute out here. That would have put me at 5 of the 6 Jane Austen novels, and I finished listening to Emma, and I think I'm going to do a review of Emma next week, so I won't say a whole lot about it here, other than Emma, I think, will end up in my top 3 Jane Austen novels, because I really did enjoy it much more than I thought I would, and I was really surprised by how much I liked it. Surprised so much, in fact, that I immediately started the audio book of Mansfield Park so that I could complete all 6 of Jane Austen's novels, or I will have completed all 6 of Jane Austen's novels by the end of this Jane Austen July. Seriously, getting to watch these bunnies jump around in my front yard is just about the best thing that might happen today. That's a really big bunny. Anyway, so I did start Mansfield Park, and I'm about 2/3 of the way through. So I'm hoping to be finished with that here in the next few days, and hopefully make some Jane Austen content, maybe for next Saturday or something like that. But anyway, that's been going really well. Just as an update, a buddy read I forget all the time to mention during Saturday Hodgepodge is that Sean the Book Maniac and I are buddy reading the short stories of Eudora. We just finished the second collection of her stories And I believe that collection was called, I can't remember what the name of that collection was, but we're about to start the third collection, which is called The Golden Apples. I've heard some things about this that made me a little bit trepidatious, is that a word? But that's going well. I'm also continuing my buddy read of Jon Passos' USA trilogy with Jack. We'll be about halfway through with the third book in that trilogy, which is called The Big Money. We'll be about halfway through that today. This is still going better than 1919 did, and Jack and I have been having a really great conversation. I enjoy that. And then I'm also buddy reading Freshwater by Akwake and Emezi with Erica from the Booktube channel and blog, The Broken Spine, and that's been great. Getting to hear Erica's thoughts about the first section of the novel really were eye-opening and great, and all her ideas are really insightful and have made me then approach the second section, which we'll be sharing thoughts about today, much differently and to look at things a lot better, which is really one of the great things about buddy reads is having someone else's thoughts and ideas to kind of propel and focus and make your reading a whole lot richer and a little bit more precise, and a little bit less about in your head, but thinking about how the book may impact other people. And then I also finally started the second volume, which is actually parts 3 through 5 of Jon Fosse's Septology. This is I Is Another, and that picked up right where the last one left off. Shocker. So, I guess this is actually a sequel I'm reading, and that's been going really well too. Also, this month and summertime is one of my favorite television watching times of the year. You may know that generally speaking, what I like to watch on television are sports, and I like to watch all kinds of sports. If there's sports on TV, I will watch. I am probably one of the 4 people on BookTube looking forward to the Olympics, because I just love the Olympics. You may know my daughter was a track and field athlete, and I really got really interested in track and field because of that. So I'm looking forward to that part of the Olympics. But the main thing that's been going on that's been really kind of fulfilling all my sports ideas this summer has been the Tour de France, and the Tour de France has just been incredible this year. We've seen Mark Cavendish tie the all-time record for stage wins. If you don't know, the Tour de France is raced on a number of stages on consecutive days that cover oftentimes more than 100 miles every single day, and each one of those stages is considered a race. And Mark Cavendish has tied Eddie Merckx's all-time record and won his 34th stage, or his 34th individual race within the Tour de France. Tadej Pogacar continues to dominate the competition for the overall winner of the Tour de France, and is probably going to win his second in a row. And then an American named Seth Kuss actually won a stage and has been competing really well in the mountains. So it's been a really good Tour de France for me. And then the British Open started this week, and we had Wimbledon end last week. Just really great sports Sunday. And I know a lot of you are going to think about cycling and how all the doping problems and how that's kind of ruined the sport. And I won't argue with you, and I won't argue about any of that kind of stuff. It's just that I still really love the Tour de France, and was really excited about how great it's been. I thought I would leave you today, as I have been doing, with music, and these are songs that come from my Spotify playlist, which I just call Quiet House, the kind of music I like to listen to at times like this, when I'm the only one up, and it's morning and it's still cool and quiet in the house. So my first choice would be Nick Drake and his song Northern Sky. Just Nick Drake, a really relatively enigmatic kind of folk singer guy, English folk singer guy for the 1970s. I think when you hear the song, you'll recognize it immediately. And then kind of one of my songs that is just, as Steve Donahue would say in his Books and Life tag, an earworm song for me is Mazzy Star's Fade Into You. So I have that one on my list today, and then I don't know if I put this one on my list, and it's possible I put the Mazzy Star song on my list before also, but Bob Dylan's song Not Dark Yet, which comes from what you wrote for the movie Wonder Boys, which was an adaptation of Michael Chabon's novel, second novel maybe, which I'll put down below, and then finally finish up with my favorite all-time band, probably is Led Zepplin, and their song "That's the Way." So there you go. That's my Saturday Hodgepodge for this week. I look forward to your comments in the comment section below. I'm going to sit here and watch these bunnies hop around in my yard for a little bit longer. So thanks for watching.